The doorbell rang at 6:14 in the morning. I was 6 months pregnant, in a robe, and the man on my porch was a county sheriff. He held a paper folded once at the seam. He asked me to confirm my name. I said yes. He handed it to me and said the new owner had 30 days to take possession. I opened it standing right there in the doorway. The cold came up through the tile under my bare feet. I read the address of my house, my grandfather's house, the house I grew up in, and then I read the name of the new owner, Karen. My mother-in-law? I called my husband, Marcus. The phone went to voicemail on the first ring, which meant he had silenced it. I called again. Same thing. He was supposed to be at a work conference 2 states away. He had kissed my belly on Sunday night and said he'd be back Friday. The sheriff was still on the porch. He was looking at my stomach and then at my face and then at the floor. He said, "Ma'am, do you have somewhere you can go?" I said, "This is my house." He said, "Ma'am, not anymore." I closed the door slowly so I wouldn't drop the paper. I leaned my back against it. My hand went to the baby on its own, the way it had started to do. I looked down at the eviction notice in the dawn light, and I read the signature on the transfer line. It was mine, and I had never signed it. I sat down at the kitchen table because my legs were shaking and I am an escrow officer, and I needed to be sitting when I read it again. I read documents like this for a living. I knew what I was looking at before my coffee finished brewing. A quitclaim deed, recorded 8 months ago at the county recorder's office, transferring the property from Anna and Marcus, joint tenants, to Karen, sole owner. Notarized, stamped, filed. My signature was on it. The N in Anna had the little hook I do at the bottom. The K in my middle name was leaning the way mine leans. Whoever did it had a sample to work from. Marcus had a sample. Marcus had every sample. Our marriage license, our tax returns, the Christmas cards I'd signed last year on the kitchen counter while he watched. I pulled up the county recorder database on my phone and confirmed the recording number. 8 months ago. March. Marcus had told me in March that he was filing our joint property tax assessment and could I please sign the cover sheet without reading it because he was running late. I had signed 3 pages that morning at the kitchen island. He had watched me do it. I remembered now what he had said when I'd asked what the 3rd page was. He had said, "You don't need to handle the property side, baby. I've got it." I had laughed. I had said, okay. I had gone back to making toast. I put my phone down on the eviction notice and I felt something in me go very, very still. The kind of still that isn't calm, the kind that is waiting. The baby moved. A long roll under my ribs, the way she did in the morning. I put my hand on top of her and I said out loud, in the empty kitchen, "We are not leaving this house." I called Marcus a 3rd time. Voicemail. I didn't leave one. Then I went upstairs and I got dressed. I put on slacks that didn't button anymore and a sweater that did. I put the eviction notice in a folder. I put the folder in my work bag. I drove to the office at 7:30 in the morning with the heat in the car turned all the way up because I couldn't stop shivering. I had a key to the file room. I had the access codes to the title plant. I had something Marcus did not know I had. I had the original trust. My grandfather set up the trust in 2018, the year before he died. He sat me down at his kitchen table, the same table that was now in my kitchen, and he said, "This house stays in your name, not your husband's, not anyone's, yours." He had used a small firm in town, an old attorney named Bradley who wore a bow tie and remembered my grandfather from the war. I had registered the trust myself. 4 months before the wedding, Marcus had been in Denver for work. I drove to the county recorder on a Tuesday in May, paid the fee in cash, and walked out with a stamped copy. Irrevocable, in my name only. Premarital separate property under state law. I had told Marcus about it once. He had been making pasta. He had said, "That's sweet, baby. Your grandpa was looking out for you." And he had not asked another question. He had not asked because he had already decided he didn't need to ask. I sat at my desk in the empty office at 7:40 in the morning, and I pulled the trust file from the locked cabinet behind my chair. I opened it. The original was there. The notary seal, the recording stamp, the date, 4 months and 11 days before my wedding. I made 3 copies. I put 1 in my bag. I put 1 in the office safe. I scanned the 3rd and emailed it to my personal account and then to the cloud backup I'd kept since college that Marcus didn't know existed. Then I sat in my chair and I let myself understand what I had. The quitclaim Marcus had filed was worthless. You cannot transfer what you do not own. Marcus had never owned this house. He had never been on title. He had forged my signature on a deed that conveyed property he had no legal interest in to his mother, who also had no legal interest. The county recorder had accepted it because the county recorder accepts what is filed. The court would not. But the court had to be told. I called Bradley, the bow tie attorney. He was 81 and he was still in the office at 7:50 in the morning because old men don't sleep. He remembered me. He remembered my grandfather. He listened to me for 4 minutes without interrupting, and then he said, "Sweetheart, file an emergency motion in probate today. I will write you a letter confirming the chain of title by noon. You bring the trust. The trust will speak for you." I hung up and I started typing the motion myself because I am an escrow officer and I knew the form. My phone rang at 11. It was Marcus. I let it ring twice before I answered because I needed my voice to be flat. He started talking before I said hello. He said, "Baby, my mom called me. She's really upset. There's been a misunderstanding with the paperwork. I'm flying back tonight. Please don't do anything until we talk." I said, "The sheriff was at the door at 6:14 this morning." He went quiet. The kind of quiet that is a man calculating. Then he said it. He said, "Look, it's just a house, Anna. You wouldn't even know how to manage it. Mom is just protecting the asset until we figure out the long-term plan. You're 6 months pregnant, baby. You shouldn't be stressing about property right now. Let me handle it." I didn't answer. I let the silence sit on the line until he could hear it. He said, Anna, are you there?" I said, "The signature on the deed isn't mine." He said, "Baby, what are you talking about? Of course it's yours. You signed it in March. Remember the tax cover sheet?" I said, "The tax cover sheet was a quitclaim deed transferring my grandfather's house to your mother." There was a pause, a short one, just long enough for him to decide which lie to use. He said, "You signed it. You knew what you were signing." I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. I let it ring. It rang 7 times. Then it stopped, and the voicemail icon appeared. Then Karen called. I let hers go to voicemail without looking. When the icon went solid, I played it on speaker because I wanted to hear it in the empty office and remember what it sounded like. Karen's voice was soft, the voice she used at Thanksgiving when she was about to say something cruel. She said, "Anna, honey, we're protecting the asset. You'll understand when the baby comes. A house is a lot of responsibility for a young mother. Marcus and I have already talked about how we're going to take care of you. Please call me back so we can stop this from getting messy." I sat at my desk and I listened to it twice. Then I deleted it, then I went into the trash folder and I deleted it from there. Then I downloaded the carrier voicemail backup file from my account, saved it 3 places, and forwarded it to Bradley with a single line that said, "Exhibit B." The motion was already drafted. I attached the trust, the quitclaim, the voicemail file, and Bradley's letter when it came through at 11:40. I filed it with the probate clerk at 1:15 in the afternoon. The clerk looked at the trust date and then up at my face and then back at the trust. She said, "Hearings Friday at 9, Judge Holloway." Bring everything. I drove home. I packed a bag. I did not stay in that house another night. I checked into a hotel 3 blocks from the courthouse on Tuesday afternoon. Room 412. 2 queens, a view of a parking garage. I paid for 4 nights on my personal card, the one Marcus did not have access to, the one I had opened the week we got engaged because something in me had known even then. I unpacked the trust. I unpacked the quitclaim. I unpacked Bradley's letter. I laid them on the second bed in 3 neat rows like I was setting a table. Then I sat on the first bed and I called my mother. I had not told her yet. She lived 4 hours away. She was 68 and she had buried my grandfather and she did not need this in her mourning. I told her in 11 sentences. The doorbell, the sheriff, the deed, the signature, the trust, the hearing on Friday. I told her I was safe. I told her I was in a hotel. I told her the baby was fine. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Your grandfather knew. He told me when he set up the trust, he said, 'That boy is going to try something. Make sure she has the paper.'" I did not cry. I had not cried yet. I was saving it. She said, "Do you want me to come?" I said, "Not yet. After Friday." She said, "After Friday, I will be there in 4 hours." I hung up and I lay on top of the comforter in my coat and I closed my eyes for what I thought was a minute and woke up at 6 in the evening with the room dark. Someone was knocking on the door. I knew it was him before I looked through the peephole. I looked anyway. Marcus was standing in the hallway in the same gray jacket he had worn to my grandfather's funeral. He was holding a paper bag from the Thai place we used to order from on Sundays. He said, "Baby, baby, I know you're in there. Open the door. Let's just talk." I sat on the floor on the other side of the door with my back against it and my hand on my stomach, and I did not make a sound. He stood out there for 15 minutes. He said my name 11 times. I counted. He said, "I love you," twice. He said, "Think about the baby," once. He said, "You're being crazy," once, very quietly, like he hadn't meant to say it out loud. Then I heard the paper bag rustle and his footsteps and the elevator chime at the end of the hall. I sat on the floor for another 20 minutes after he was gone. The baby moved, a slow stretch under my ribs. I whispered to her, 3 more days. Then I got up and I went to the front desk and I asked them to flag my room. No visitors, no calls put through. If anyone asked for Anna, I was not registered. The night clerk looked at my belly and at my face and she said, "Yes, ma'am." She wrote it on a sticky note and put it on her monitor. She said, "You let me know if he comes back." I said, "Thank you." I went back upstairs. I slept 8 hours for the first time in 3 days. Thursday, I worked from the hotel desk with my laptop and a printer I had brought from the office. I went over every line of the quitclaim. I went over every line of the trust. I read the state statute on forged conveyances 3 times. I made a binder, tabs, color-coded. The kind of binder I made for my biggest commercial closings. At 2 in the afternoon, Bradley called. He said, "Sweetheart, I want to walk in there with you tomorrow. Pro bono, for your grandfather." I said, "Bradley, you're 81. He said, "And I was your grandfather's friend for 53 years. Be at the courthouse at 8:30. Wear the Navy. Judges trust the Navy." I had brought the Navy. Thursday night, I called the police non-emergency line and I asked how to file a report for forgery of a recorded instrument. The dispatcher transferred me to the financial crimes desk. A detective named Helen took my statement over the phone for 40 minutes. I emailed her the quitclaim, the trust, and a sample of my actual signature for my driver's license renewal. She said she'd open a case file in the morning. She said, "Ma'am, do you have a safe place to stay until the hearing?" I said yes. She said, "Good, don't go back to that house alone." Friday morning, I got up at 5:30. I showered. I put on the Navy. I put on the only pair of low heels that still fit. I put my hair up in a low knot, the way my grandmother used to wear hers. I put concealer under my eyes. I put my hand on my stomach and I said, "Today, we get our house back." I met Bradley at 8:30 on the courthouse steps. He was wearing the bow tie. He had brought a leather briefcase that looked older than I was. He looked at me and his eyes got wet and he said, "Your grandfather would be very proud of you today." I almost broke. I didn't. I held it. We went inside. We went through security. We sat on the bench outside Judge Holloway's courtroom at 8:52. At 8:58, Karen walked in. She was wearing a cream pantsuit and pearls, and she had brought her own attorney, a man in his 50s with a heavy briefcase and the kind of smile lawyers wear when they have already decided they will win. Marcus was not with her. Marcus was nowhere in the building. Karen saw me on the bench. She looked at my stomach. She looked at Bradley in his bow tie. She gave me the same soft Thanksgiving smile she'd used in the voicemail. She said, "Anna, honey, there's still time to settle this quietly." I did not stand up. I said, "My attorney will see you inside." Bradley patted my hand. The bailiff opened the door. We went in. The probate hearing room was small. 3 benches on each side. A judge's bench raised 2 steps. A flag on the right. A clock on the back wall that read 9:03 when Judge Holloway came in. She was 60, gray bob, reading glasses on a chain. She sat down and she opened the file and she said, "This is an emergency motion regarding a recorded conveyance. Petitioner, Anna. Respondent, Karen. Counsel, state your appearances." Bradley stood up. He said his name and bar number in a voice that filled the room. Karen's attorney stood up. He said his name. He said he represented the current title holder of record. Judge Holloway looked over her glasses at him. She said, "Current title holder of record as of when, counsel?" He said, "As of March of this year, Your Honor, by recorded quitclaim deed." She said, "All right, petitioner, proceed." Bradley walked to the podium. He set his old briefcase down. He opened it. He took out one document, just one. He said, "Your Honor, the petitioner is the sole beneficiary and trustee of the Holloway Family Trust, established in 2018 by her grandfather, recorded with the county on May 17, 2019. The trust is irrevocable. The trust holds title to the property at the address listed in the eviction notice served on petitioner at 6:14 Tuesday morning. The trust was recorded 4 months and 11 days before petitioner's marriage to the respondent's son. Under state law, it is separate property. It was never marital. It could never be conveyed by quitclaim by a non-title holder. We move the court to void the March recording, restore title to the trust, and refer the matter for criminal investigation. He walked the trust deed up to the bench. He set it in front of the judge. Judge Holloway read it. The room was quiet. The clock said 9:07. She read it slowly, page by page. She looked at the recording stamp. She looked at the date. She looked at the notary seal. She looked up at Karen's attorney. She said, "Counsel, did your client know about this trust before she accepted the conveyance?" Karen's attorney opened his mouth. He closed it. He opened it again. He said, "Your Honor, may I have a brief recess to confer with my client?" Judge Holloway said, 10 minutes. She stood up. The bailiff stood up. Karen stood up. Karen's attorney took her by the elbow and walked her out the side door, and his hand was tight on her arm in a way that was not gentle. Bradley sat down next to me. He did not say anything. He patted my hand again. I put my hand on the baby and I waited. The clock moved. 9:09, 9:11, 9:14, 9:16, 9:18. At 9:21, the side door opened. Karen's attorney came back in alone. Karen was not with him. He did not sit down. He stood at his table with his hands on the edge of it, and he looked at the judge and he said, "Your Honor, my client withdraws her claim to the property." Judge Holloway said, "Counsel, your client cannot withdraw a recorded deed by saying so in my courtroom." He said, "Your Honor, my client consents to the relief requested by petitioner." Judge Holloway took off her reading glasses. She said, "The March 17th quitclaim deed is void ab initio. Title is restored to the Holloway Family Trust as of this morning's date. The respondent shall vacate the property within 30 days. The court refers the matter of the forged signature on the recorded instrument to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. The court further notes that the named purported grantor on the recorded instrument, Marcus, is a member of the State Bar, and the court will be forwarding this order to the State Bar's Office of Professional Conduct." She picked up her gavel. She said, "It is just a house, counsel." "But it is her house." The gavel came down. Karen's attorney did not move. He stayed standing at his table because there was nowhere left to sit that meant anything. I did not stand up either. I sat on the bench with my hand on my stomach and I felt the baby move and I let one tear go down the side of my face because I had been saving it for 4 days and it was time. Bradley leaned over. He said, "Sweetheart, let's go home." By Sunday, Karen had 3 men with a U-Haul taking boxes out of my front door, and I sat in the driveway in my car and I watched her watch them load every piece of her own furniture onto the truck. She did not look at me once. She knew I was there. By Monday morning, Marcus had been suspended from the practice of law pending the bar's investigation. I learned this from Bradley, who learned it from a friend at the Bar Association, who said the suspension came down in under 48 hours because the evidence was, and these were her words, embarrassingly clean. By Wednesday, the divorce papers I had asked Bradley to draft were on Marcus's attorney's desk. Marcus did not contest. He could not afford to contest. He signed everything within 10 days because his bar reinstatement depended on not making it worse. The criminal case took longer. It always does. Marcus pled to a lesser charge in March of the following year. He did 6 months. He served 4. By the time he was out, the baby was 8 months old and did not know his name. I gave birth in the house, my grandfather's house, my house. My mother was there. Bradley sent flowers. I named her after my grandmother. She was 7 pounds, 4 ounces, and she had my hands. Sometimes, late at night when she's nursing and the house is quiet, I think about the sheriff on the porch at 6:14 in the morning. I think about how cold the tile was under my feet. I think about reading my own forged signature in the dawn light, and the moment I understood that my husband had spent 8 months of our marriage planning to take my grandfather's house and hand it to his mother before the divorce, I didn't know was coming. And then I think about the trust. The paper my grandfather made me promise to file before the wedding. The paper Marcus never asked about a second time because he had already decided I wouldn't think to keep it. Here's what I learned in that hearing room, the morning the gavel came down. A man who calls your home just a house has already decided it isn't yours. And a woman who keeps the paper her grandfather gave her doesn't have to argue. The paper argues for her. If you stayed with me this far, the channel has more women like me, women who got their answer. Subscribe and hit the bell. There's another one waiting for you right here when you're ready.